about chapter 16 to 20 in Wish by Barbara O'Connor. This is the author of How to Steal a Doll, okay? Let's start. So we learn that, we now have Charlie's father writing to Charlie. How do you think that Charlie felt about this? And do you think that you were you surprised about this? And then she decided, and it said Wake Country Correctional Center. That was where the letter came from, right? So, do you think that correctional center and jail, do you think they're both the same? And why do you think they named it correctional center when they could have just named it jail? And if this is a correctional center, then what do you think that Scrappy should get corrected of? Okay, what did you think about the letter? Do you think that it was nice or not? And how do you think that Charlie felt about the word love? And also, the first day of summer, it might sound fun because there's no school, but actually it's pretty boring because there's really nothing to do. You just sit around and do nothing. Sometimes you get bored, right? Do you agree with Charlie that the first day of summer is boring or not? And Howard asks if she wants to study for Bible detective. If you had been Charlie, would you have said yes or no? And then we go to the creek. They wish, right? Because they said the same thing at the exact same time. Well, excuse me. The wishing, right? So, what do you think that Howard wished for, right? And also, why do you think that Howard at first didn't even make a wish for, right? And also, and then he said, well, actually, there is a wish I would like to do, right? And then so they do it again, and then of course Charlie guesses, and she says this: you wished you didn't have that up-down walk. And as soon as she said that, she knew that she had said the wrong thing. How do you think that Howard felt like this? How do you think that Howard felt? And do you think that Howard actually wished for that, or do you think that it was something else? Also, do you think that Charlie's mean? And then, also, Wishbone suddenly took off after the squirrel. So now Wishbone is gone too. What a terrible day. Okay, so how do you think that this day pretty much felt like for Charlie? Anyway, Charlie kept on searching for Wishbone. If you had been Charlie, would you have just kept on searching for Wishbone, or would you have just shrugged it off and been like, hey, it was okay when he was here. And besides, he's a stray. He's gonna be able to survive. How would you do this? How would you do it? And also, what do you think that Howard feels of Charlie now? And also, what do you think about Bertha's style for not like yelling at Charlie, but sort of trying to make Charlie feel better, right? And also, then the next morning, Howard comes up, and Howard's actually really nice. Why do you think that Howard just let it go? And if you had been Howard, would you have let this go? Or would you have just been like, well, Charlie was mean to me, I'm never gonna see him again. So, okay, so they kept on going around, right? Going around the woods, and also, so like they kept on searching, but of course there's nothing, right? There's nothing. no Wishbone. Oh man. And then Jackie called, right? And she said that she had gotten a tattoo. Do you like tattoos? And would you have wanted to get one then? And if you had gotten a tattoo, then what would you have gotten? And where would you have gotten it? Oh yeah, not Jackie, Scrappy got the tattoo, right? So where would you have put your tattoo, and what would it be? And if you don't like tattoos, then you can just skip that part. Yeah, or else, if you don't like those kinds of tattoos, then you know those tattoos that you, like there's a piece of paper and there's a drawing, and you put it down on your wrist or whatever you want to put it, and then after you put it down, then you put some water on top of it, like a wet paper towel. You wait for a minute or two, and then it's there, but it's always scrubbable and it goes away, like that too. But Charlie loses her temper, right? Or at least, yeah. Or at least she just slams down the phone. If you had been Charlie, would you have done the same thing? But then Jackie called again, right? And do you think that Jackie really is sorry about missing Wishbone and about Wishbone being gone? And also, I wanted to ask you, when they were heading home, right? So I mean, well, Bertha and Gus, they went down and all that, right? And Charlie, and when they went home, there was Wishbone right in front of the house. How do you think that Charlie felt? Of course she felt joyous and was really, really happy. Of course, she was not happy, but still, how do you think that she felt? What's an adjective? How would you describe it with an adjective? Adjective is describing words. And why do you think that Wishbone came back to Charlie when he could have just been free? Also, another thing I wanted to ask you is that, have you ever had this kind of experience? I was just curious. Okay, chapter 19. So, also, Wishbone was treated like a king, right? How do you think that Wishbone felt about this? And did you think he understood why he was being treated like a king? And also, I also wanted to ask you about something else, okay? And excuse me, what do you think about Howard and Charlie? Do you think that they are very good friends? And also, do you think that Charlie in the end will go back to Raleigh, or do you think that she's just gonna stay here? Because the Blue Ridge Mountains is heaven, right? She has great friends. There's Gus and Bertha, and there's Wishbone, right? And yeah, so it's pretty cool. And also, so they go back to the creek, and Charlie apologizes. That was the right thing to do. But do you think that how embarrassed do you think that Charlie felt about this? And also, then, so he was like, oh yeah, and then he said this, okay? I'm reading from my book. It says this. Okay, oh yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna read actually a few sentences, okay? It's this. I know that was a mean thing to say, and I'm sorry, I said. Okay, this is Charlie, okay? And then now, okay? I waited for Howard to say, that's okay, but he didn't. I waited for him to say, don't worry about it, but he didn't. I waited for him to say, oh, heck, Charlie, I forgot all about it, but he didn't. In fact, he didn't say anything for the longest time, and then he shrugged and said, I'm used to kids saying mean things about the way I walk. Okay, so, and then after that, it says this. Ouch! Stab me in the heart, Howard. toss me into the mean pile with all the other hateful kids in Colby. Squish me into the mud like the worm I am. And so, why do you think that this was even worse than if he had said this? Well, I'm not gonna forgive you because you are a real jerk then. How do you think that this was different? In which ways was this worse? Worser than if Howard had shouted at Charlie? And also, then we learned that Jackie's coming to visit. If you had been Charlie, would you have been excited or would you have been a little embarrassed about the Cinderella pillowcases? And also, they go to Jack, and do you think that Jackie and Charlie, the relationship isn't like the best relationship, but do you think that they're gonna be okay together? But anyway, when Jackie came toward Charlie, how do you think she felt? An adjective. Try an adjective. What do you think about Jackie? Because actually, this is the first time we meet Jackie. Right? So you might be saying, no, we didn't. But actually, in person, this is the first time we've met Jackie. I mean, over the phone, yes, and Charlie describing her, but actually we never met her in the story, have we? Except for the phone. How do you think that do you think that Jackie, do you think she's fitting in fine with this Colby? And why do you think that she's so good at fitting in and being so popular? And also, I wanted to ask you about Jackie, right? And also, so Jackie and Bertha, they kept on talking and talking. And do you think that they're a very good fit for each other? And also, Jackie. Okay, so Jackie and Charlie, do you think that they're gonna have an absolutely awesome, amazing holiday together? Or do you think that something is gonna be wrong? Well, of course, don't misjudge how bad a relationship can go, because relationships can go pretty good, okay? But also don't misjudge if you expect everything to go good. But anyway, before I go, I wanted to ask you. So, what I wanted to ask you about was Charlie. Excuse me. So Charlie and Jackie. So Jackie, how do you think that she feels about her mama and sort of her broken family? Do you think that she got affected in any way, but she's just not showing it? Because we've heard a lot from Charlie. This book is all about from Charlie's point of view. But what about Jackie? And do you think that Jackie's point of view should describe a whole other book? It should be a whole other book about her experiences? I think so. Anyway, I wanted to ask you the last questions, like, what was your favorite part in these chapters and then the whole book so far? Who's your favorite and least favorite characters? How do you like this amazing book so far? And finally, what do you predict is going to happen next? It's getting really exciting, right? So I hope that you read a little more of Wish by the amazing author Barbara O'Connor. She's written How to Steal a Dog, like I said before. It's actually a really good book. So I really like that book. So I recommend you to do that book, okay guys?